What does it mean to be a nation forged out of many? 1. The story of the United States is one of immense complexity, conflict, and breathtaking change. Let us take a 10-minute journey through the history of a nation that began long before its official founding. For thousands of years, North America was home to hundreds of distinct indigenous nations, each with its own rich culture, language, and traditions. From the sprawling cities of the Mississippi Valley to the nomadic tribes of the Great Plains, these were the first Americans whose societies were deeply connected to the land. This world was forever altered at the end of the 15th century with the arrival of European explorers, sparking an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, diseases, and cultures, and setting the stage for a new chapter in world history. The 1600s saw the establishment of permanent European colonies along the Atlantic coast. In 1607, English settlers founded Jamestown, Virginia, driven by the pursuit of wealth and facing immense hardship. A few years later, in 1620, the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, Massachusetts, seeking religious freedom. These were just the beginnings. Over the next century and a half, 13 distinct British colonies would take root, each developing a unique character. From the tobacco plantations of the South, built on the labor of indentured servants and increasingly enslaved Africans, to the merchant towns of New England, a new, uniquely American society began to emerge, diverse, ambitious, and fiercely independent. By the mid-1700s, this sense of independence began to clash with the authority of Great Britain. After the costly French and Indian War, Britain sought to pay its debts by imposing new taxes on the colonies. Acts like the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts were met with fierce resistance. The colonists, who had no representatives in the British Parliament, rallied around a powerful cry: "No taxation without representation." Tensions escalated, leading to events like the Boston Massacre and the famous Boston Tea Party, where colonists, disguised as Native Americans, dumped a fortune in tea into the harbor to protest a British monopoly. King George III and Parliament responded with punitive measures, pushing the colonies ever closer to open rebellion. The simmering tensions finally boiled over in April 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The American Revolution had begun. What started as a fight for the rights of Englishmen soon became a war for independence. In the summer of 1776, the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, a revolutionary document penned primarily by Thomas Jefferson. It declared that all men are created equal, endowed with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Led by General George Washington, the underdog Continental Army faced the most powerful military on earth. Against all odds, with crucial aid from France, they secured a final victory at Yorktown in 1781, winning their freedom and the chance to create a new kind of nation. Winning the war was one thing, building a country was another. The first government, under the Articles of Confederation, was too weak to manage the new nation's problems. So in 1787, delegates gathered in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. Their goal was to create a framework for a stronger, more stable government. The resulting U.S. Constitution, beginning with the iconic words "We the People," established a republic with a system of checks and balances among three branches of government. It was a bold experiment in self-governance. With George Washington unanimously elected as the first president, the United States of America began its journey as a constitutional republic, facing the monumental task of turning the ideals of the Revolution into a functioning reality. With the nation established, its people began to look westward. The 19th century was defined by an idea called manifest destiny, the belief that the United States was destined to expand across the entire continent. This expansion began in earnest with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which doubled the size of the country overnight. The Lewis and Clark expedition charted this vast new territory, opening the door for waves of pioneers, traders, and settlers. They traveled in covered wagons along trails like the Oregon Trail, seeking land and opportunity. The California Gold Rush of 1849 drew hundreds of thousands more. But this expansion came at a tremendous cost, leading to the displacement and violent removal of Native American nations from their ancestral lands. As the nation expanded, a deep and bitter divide was growing within it, a divide over the institution of slavery. The economy of the South was dependent on the labor of enslaved African Americans, while the industrializing North was moving toward abolition. Compromises were attempted, but they only delayed the inevitable conflict. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, who opposed the expansion of slavery, was the final straw for the Southern states. They seceded from the Union, forming the Confederacy. In 1861, the Civil War began a brutal, four-year conflict that pitted brother against brother. It was the deadliest war in American history, but it ultimately led to the preservation of the Union and, with Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment, the abolition of slavery. In the decades following the Civil War, America underwent a staggering transformation. The Second Industrial Revolution unleashed a wave of innovation. Titans of industry like Carnegie and Rockefeller built empires in steel and oil, while a network of railroads stitched the country together like never before. Cities exploded in size, with skyscrapers reaching for the heavens. This era, known as the Gilded Age, was one of incredible wealth and progress, but it also concealed deep social problems. Millions of immigrants poured into the country through ports like Ellis Island, seeking a better life but often finding harsh working conditions and crowded tenements. It was an age of extreme inequality, sparking the rise of labor unions and a call for reform. The 20th century thrust the United States onto the world stage as a global power. The nation's industrial might helped tip the scales for the Allies in World War I. The decade that followed, the Roaring Twenties, was a period of cultural exuberance, an economic boom, only to come to a crashing halt with the stock market collapse of 1929 and the ensuing Great Depression. The country was plunged into hardship, marked by Dust Bowl migrations and widespread unemployment. This crisis was overcome by the massive mobilization for World War II, a global conflict that saw America fight tyranny in both Europe and the Pacific. Victory established the U.S. as a superpower, but it also ushered in the nuclear age and a new kind of global standoff. The second half of the 20th century was dominated by two major movements, the Cold War and the Civil Rights Movement. The ideological struggle against the Soviet Union led to a nuclear arms race, the space race that put a man on the moon, and proxy wars in places like Korea and Vietnam. At home, a different kind of struggle was being fought. African Americans and their allies, led by figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., used nonviolent protests to dismantle the system of segregation and demand equal rights. Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech became an anthem for justice. This era of profound social change, which also included movements for women's and LGBTQ rights, fundamentally reshaped American society and redefined its promise of liberty for all. From the fall of the Berlin Wall to the dawn of the digital age, America continues to evolve. The journey from indigenous homelands to a complex, multicultural nation of over 330 million people is a testament to the country's motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. It is a story of triumphs and failures, of unity and division, of constantly striving to live up to its founding ideals. The challenges of today are different, but the questions remain the same. How do we form a more perfect union and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity? The American story is still being written every single day. Thanks for joining us on this rapid tour of US history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content.